Hi, this is Shaman Weaver Sheila Baker, and we're talking about the art of listening. Now, we talk about the art of giving information, the learning about how to give a speech, the way that you focus, you ground and center yourself, and that you get your material, you know your material, and you begin to present it. On the flip side of that is the art of listening. And we don't really often spend much time thinking about that. We think more about the presentation as opposed to the reception. So we're going to talk about today the art of listening. Before I go on, just think for a moment, how do I listen? How do you take information in and discern it? So often, even before someone begins to speak, we have prejudged, first of all, their ability to tell us anything that we don't already know. Secondly, the way that they're presenting, because, we have this idea that first impressions are lasting, and that we're going to gain anything from listening. So this prejudgment almost dials down your ability to hear what's being presented to you. And you've actually somehow, consciously or unconsciously, made a choice to listen to this person, and then you've prejudged it. So if you think about that, how is it that you're receptive if the judgments are already in place? So, can you imagine for a moment that prior to listening to someone, you do a quick little clearing? Imagine that you are standing there and you're smudging yourself. So over top of you, you can wave your hand around and you can feel the wind that your hand creates. And this is a really lovely physical cue for you to go, oh, I'm in listening mode now. When we want to present something, we actually step up consciously or unconsciously to do that. But the listening, we begin to take for granted. We've spent our entire lives listening. When we were little, we listened to 65,000 no's before we were even 5 years old. It's always a great blessing to me that any of us get to yes. And yet we do. So when you begin to be in that place of listening, perhaps there's a little something that you can do so that you're more receptive. Someone suggested it's about having an open heart to hearing what it is that that person has to say. When we go in prejudging, the heart is closing. And then we hear less, and we're also gearing up to be invested to counter what it is that they're saying without actually taking it all in, opening the heart to really hear. We drop into a duality that if someone else is telling us something, then there's a right and a wrong. My opinion and your opinion. And of course, your opinion is always right for you. You're the only one that knows your truth. And there's a great bunch of seeking that's going on to seek the truth. But the seeking the truth goes outside of your own right, true, and beautiful self. So only you know your truth. Other people's truth is not necessarily going to be your truth. That, however, doesn't mean that you're prejudging them. It just means, oh, my truth may not be their truth. but your truth can always be added to. That's the beautiful part of being human, growing, evolving, changing, learning, thriving, surviving, flourishing, expanding being. So perhaps one of the things that you can do when you're engaging in conversation with someone is to take a deep breath. And if you listen to me, you'll notice that I bring it back to the breath frequently. It grounds us, it clears us, it expands us, it allows us to be inspired, to have an inhalation, which brings more into the body. When you deeply breathe, your lungs open up, the heart space opens. So just that very one thing that brings you to consciously listening to the other person. As you're doing this, as your heart area is expanding, you might notice that the mind begins to disengage. It's very difficult to listen to someone, take something in when you are closed-hearted and closed-minded. We don't often think about the two of those things going hand in hand. We often think, oh, that person is just closed-minded. Don't bother even giving them that piece of information. They won't take it in. Oh, look, we prejudged them. But when we go in to sharing something with someone from a place of this is a gift that I have, you might find it useful, rather than this is what I think and this is what I'm going to say and you better agree with me. Because so often that's what we do when we get into conversation. We're in the convincing business. So what if you're not in the convincing business as you give the information? On the receptive end, you're not in the being convinced. You don't think someone is trying to take advantage of you. You haven't formulated an opinion already about what they're going to say before they've even said it, and your rebuttal is just there waiting. And how many times have you caught yourself doing that? So the open-hearted listening doesn't happen because the rebuttal is already there, ready to go. Hurry up, stop saying what you're saying. I got to say this back to you. So the art of breathing is part of the art of listening. When you actually stop and focus, make eye contact with the person who you're receiving the information from, that's a gift of listening. That connection already sends out a vibration of connection, of acceptance, of compatibility, if you will. So you're already focused, open, and willing to receive. And what if, this is a really beautiful what if you take 2 breaths after that person has finished saying what they've had to say? This is part of the art of listening, is receiving, breathing it in, taking it into yourself, stopping from having that immediate reaction back, but honestly responding from a vibrational, compatible place where your heart is open, your mind is open, and you're listening. That doesn't mean that you're complacent or compliant with the information that you've been given, but there's a respect in there. I will listen to you. I respectfully take that in. It doesn't have to be my truth, but after a couple of breaths, you can respond with, oh, and this is how I see this. This is how I think about these things. This is how I respond in that situation. Can you imagine if we do this with just one person a day? 1 year goes by and we have respectfully listened to 365 people. Now that person that we've listened to, because we're in the art of listening, Our mind is open, our heart is open, we've taken a breath, we don't have a rebuttal before they've even started, but we're in that waiting place. This is what I call the enlightened spiritual warrior. We're in a place of waiting and listening and gathering prior to responding. There's no reaction in there. There's an ability to respond thoughtfully, respectfully, honoringly, with an open heart and an open mind. This is not something that happens very often. And if you can receive this gift that I'm giving you right now with your own open heart and open mind, and you receive this in and you get just the idea that, oh, I'm going to wait until that person has fully stopped saying what they have to say. How many times have you gone, God, I wish this person would just take a breath because I got something to say? When you learn and you teach other people, I have something to say at the end, take a couple of breaths before you respond to me, and you begin to model that, 365 people get a different experience in just 1 year. And the more you do this, the more you'll get it back. You'll be heard, and don't we all want that? You'll be witnessed, you'll be seen, you'll be validated, which is very important, and we all want that for sure. And then you'll have the ability to thoughtfully, 2 breaths worth of thinking before you respond and reply. So here's the tips. When you're listening to someone, connect with them. Connect through their eyes. When you're listening to someone, take a breath that expands and opens up your chest and therefore your heart. That calming down allows the mind to stop racing so that you can actually internalize that which you are listening to. The 2 breaths after the full explanation has been given allows you to formulate and vibrate at a way that you can respond and therefore be listened to. So think about that cycle. I have something that I want to get across to you, like even this podcast right now. If you're listening and you're formulating ideas and you're got all these counters and it's all going on, you're lost in your own thinking process and can't possibly hear the rest of what's been said and being said to you. So that breath that you take, the eye gaze that you do, enables you to connect, to be fully present, to be breathing in the information as well as listening, to not be formulating your response as you go along, but to have 2 breaths at the end so that you then receive the gift of listening back. So it's a beautiful reciprocal process. I listen to you, I hear you. 2 breaths. And here's my response back to you. It comes from a completely different place. So the art of listening is valuable, it's useful, and you'll come to appreciate when others listen to you. So I hope this is useful for you. And if I can do anything for you, shamanweaver.com. Bliss.